is real, how are we going to find out about it? How can we transform this searching into a discovery? Well, in the old alchemical system, there was a mysterious being called Elias the artist. Elias is the patriarch referred in the Bible as one who went to God without death. And this mysterious power, Elias the artist, would come in the night to some alchemist who was considered worthy and would give him the secret, or give him perhaps a few grains of the elixir of life, of the transmutation, would stay a little time and then disappear and never be seen again. And in each case, the Elias power left some proof behind it. It left evidence to the chemist himself that there was an answer, that there was a solution. And in some cases, as in the case of Sendivogius, this powder actually was used by him to transmute base metals. And apparently, physically, he believed at least, it accomplished this end. Or was it true that Sendivogius also knew and put into symbolism what this powder really was? That it was not there to transmute base copper or bronze or iron, but to transmute base ignorance, superstition, or fear into the realization of truth. I think we have to recognize that the great transmutation must be in some way justified by human experience itself. We should be justified by the mere fact that we are alive, because the very existence in which we live has never been explained adequately. We do not know where we actually came from long before there were stars. We do not know where we are going after the last star goes out. We do not know what we are made of, except of substances that are held together by a strange magnetic chemistry. We know that we live from day to day upon life. We know that the very process of digesting food is an alchemical process. But we also must realize that this process goes to the acceptance and digesting of experience, which is another kind of food, a kind of food that nourishes the mind and understanding. That we must also experience the mystery of love, of divine acceptances of things. These are foods which must also sustain hope within the individual. Therefore, those things necessary for the attainment of the alchemical transmutation must be experienced within the person. He must become aware of these truths, and he must be able to apply them socially upon the different levels and parts of his society. He must understand what governments are. The governments are nothing but the hollow shadow or extension of a divine way of doing things, and that as long as any government differs from the archetype from which it came, it cannot fulfill itself. Therefore, governments must be regenerated. They must be reformed, revised, and restored to their original purpose, namely the purpose of fulfilling the infinite unfoldment of the divine purpose in creation. While governments are dependent entirely upon books and codes and creeds, or laws are passed only by those who are themselves ignorant of what law is, or where it comes from, or why it is, or what it must be, we are in trouble. But as long as we are willing to build our laws solely upon previous laws, or upon the previous incumbent in public office, we will never get to understand the final great fact, namely that all things obey except man, and out of his disobedience fell the angels. Every part of nature except man is incapable by its own constitution of actually violating universal law. It has no initiative. It has no free power to become a separate creature. Man is separate. He is separate because potentially he is capable of a greater advancement than any other kingdom of nature on this earth. He is the leading power here All previous embodiments on this planet have been leading toward him. They have been gradually releasing that part of his own potential which enables him to stand and proclaim his existence. This, however, is not to be the subject of great rejoicing, nor is he to become completely overwhelmed by his own egotism. The fact that he exists is a remarkable thing. The fact that he can exist well is a still more remarkable thing. And he hasn't quite gotten there yet. But he is hoping. But his hopes have to be brought into some form of pattern. And when the old time, in the Bible, they spoke of the earth as a garden and considered that man was the gardener. Well, a gardener is one who takes care of the plants. We're not really doing that. As gardeners in the garden of life, we are not protecting it. We are exploiting it. We are not doing all we can to preserve it. We are doing all we can to make it a servant of personal ambitions. So we may say that nearly all of that which is rooted in ambition has a tendency to be corrupt. It may not necessarily be wrong, but it can easily become so. We cannot, by ambition of our own, do that which only eternity knows. We cannot solve problems that are greater than our insights or our understandings. But fortunately, we don't have to. We only have to come into a harmonious relationship with the great plan of life itself. And this is what, in a large way, alchemy really represented. It told us through human digestion and the digestion of metals that there are processes going on that if we do not interfere with them, corrupt them, or pervert them, are magnificently sufficient. The only thing we can do is cut ourselves off from life by the misuse of it. We can only destroy that which we have labored so hard to build: bodies, attitudes, institutions, nations, governments, parties, and policies. All these things we have built up only to destroy them by our own selfishness. Now we say that's a very great tragedy. Yes, but unfortunately there's still another point that is more important. Namely, if we can destroy them, they are not the thing we are seeking. Anything that can be destroyed is not part of the reality, which is completely indestructible. Therefore, we have to gradually bring our own consciousness into relationships with things in which we become aware of the indestructibility of truth. Until we realize this, we will continue to destroy idols we have set up, falsehoods we have deified, until finally we turn against them. Now, in the closing years of the present century, many of the ancient esoteric arts have come back into focus. 50 years ago, an astrologer was considered to be mildly mad. Today, he is becoming more and more interesting, and not only to humanity, but to the sciences. And there are a great many liberal thinkers who, in the last generation, would never permit themselves to study such matters. We came along with acupuncture, which for 2,000 or 3,000 years was used in China and scoffed by us. And all of a sudden we're interested in it. We're interested in the I Ching. We're interested in yoga and Vedanta. We're interested in esotericism, psychism, every type of thing that was once important, then passed into submergence, and now begins to come out again. Why? Because we are becoming more and more, might say, fearful. We are more and more aware that there has to be something we don't know, that there's some way of doing some of these things better than we're doing them. So we're beginning to look for the people who did them better. And we suddenly realize that they are the ones we've been making fun of for centuries, because we believe so firmly in our own mistakes. Now, the coming way of thinking has brought back a tremendous revival in alchemy. Alchemy is flourishing with new books, new publications, new exponents, new researches, new projects every day. But there's one thing we have to beware of, and that is, as Basil Valentine pointed out, the great chemist, woe unto the gold makers. If we are going to use alchemy now to pay the national debt, we'll be exactly where we were to start with. If we firmly believe that we can use these superior sciences to protect our mistakes, we're wrong. We are only able to use these correctly if we are also dedicated persons. Unless the happy-go-lucky attitude, which is neither happy nor lucky, that we are in now, is changed, there is no form of learning that we can restore or create that will not land in the same condition we are in today. Because it is a value pattern. We have to change the basic relationship between ourselves and life. This is the great transmutation. This is the secret of the philosopher's stone and the elixir of life. We cannot simply use these powers to take care of our present mistakes. We cannot use psychism to find out how to get out of being alcoholics and then keep on drinking. We cannot say that we are going to use philosophy and then keep on nagging our neighbors and insulting each other. We cannot have enemies and be truth seekers at the same time. We cannot go on supporting the policies with our minds while we are attacking them with our souls. So out of it all comes the necessity of starting with the basic element of alchemy, and that is the person. Bamey and the Rosicrucian group in Europe, many other systems, have emphasized the point that regeneration begins with the individual, that only a person who has a proper internal relationship with life is willing to or capable of making the changes that are necessary. So somewhere in this process we must identify the pearl of great price, the seed soul in ourselves, something that is so mysterious, so minute, that it is like the proverbial mustard seed, that being the least among the seeds shall grow into a great tree. The search for the seed of life. And science should be seeking it. Everything should be seeking to know that which is locked within something so small and so abstract that we cannot even distinguish it or analyze it, and yet from which flows all existence, all condition, all progress, and all reality. Here is the tiny germ, which is the greatest thing in the world, far greater than anything we know. And it's in us, and one thing we can prove that. We can prove it by the fact that we're here this morning. We can prove it by the fact that we can raise a hand, that we can drive a car, that we can enjoy a bad program on TV. All these things are proofs of something. The fact that we like one thing and dislike another, believe one thing and disbelieve another, these are all evidences of the presence within ourselves of a power, of a life reality, a germ of eternity by which we exist. We are not the only ones. That germ is in everything. But in man it is a certain core. It's reaching further into the great world of needs. In other words, it is the basis of the fruit of life that we're all seeking. Here we are, able to think, able to play the piano magnificently, able to control and direct the actual forces that make up our civilization. All of these things are within our dispatch and within our area of possibility. We have already produced a great world, the modern world, but we have not ensouled it. The thing we have produced up to the present time is a robot. Our whole civilization